Take the journey, come on, let's go. Oh yeah, where the stars and secrets flow. Summation X radios glow. In the night, we'll ride the show into the unknown, unknown, where mysteries are shown, shown. Dance to the beat we own, oh yeah. Come with us and let it go, go. Night sky whispers in the dark. Secret trails will leave a mark. Follow close, ignite that spark. We're alive, it's just the start. Into the unknown, unknown, where mysteries are shown, shown. Dance to the beat we own, oh yeah. Come with us and let it go, go. Feel the rhythm, feel the night. Every heartbeat, pure delight. So mysteries come to light. Hold on tight, it's out of sight. Into the unknown, unknown, where mysteries are shown, shown. Dance to the beat we own, oh yeah. Come with us and let it go, go. Feel the rhythm, feel the night. It's every heartbeat, pure delight. Mysteries come to light. Hold on tight, it's out of sight. It's out of sight. Into the unknown, unknown, where mysteries are shown, shown. Dance to the beat we own, oh yeah. Come with us and let it go, go. Unraveling the mystery, secrets in the night. We travel through the cosmos, ready for the flight. Together we'll shine, casting shadows aside. In the heart of the rhythm where our dreams collide.
Join the Submission X quest, the truth is our guide. In the vast expanse, it's where we reside. Hands up to the sky, let the bass ignite. Feel the grooves around us, everything's alright.
From the Submission X quest, the truth is our guide. In the vast expanse, it's where we reside. Hands up to the sky, let the bass ignite. Feel the grooves surround us, everything's alright. SNX radio, let the truth ignite. Together we'll shine, bringing shadows to light. In this cosmic dance, we're connecting the dots.
Tune into the frequency, let's explore the spots. Heavy bass drops with tight beats.
Illuminate the shadows, the echo of our call.
On this road we will never fall.
Feel the energy rising, can you sense the spark? As we dive deeper into the cosmic arc.
Stories of the universe, mysteries unfold. In the heart of SNX, where the truth is gold. Every note we play, every line we write, crafting our legacy, shining ever bright.
SNX radio, let the truth ignite. Together we'll shine, bringing shadows to light. In this cosmic dance, we're connecting the dots.
Tune into the frequency, let's explore the spot. Here in the spotlight, we're taking our turn. With the fire in our hearts, let the passion burn. As the next radio's call, ringing through the air. Together we rise, together we dare.
So join us now, let the rhythm flow. With SNX Radio, we're ready to go. Unraveling the mystery side by side, we stand hand in hand. In this dance of truth, let the story expand. Out in the dark, the stars align. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Signals flashing, the secret sign. Sasquatch whispers, UFOs glide. Mysteries unfold, can't hide, can't hide. Voices in the static calling me, calling me. A cosmic rhythm setting me free. SNX, feel the vibe, let it flow. Connections glowing, don't you know? SNX, light the night, let it show. Cosmic groove, we're ready to go. In the woods, shadows move, move. Skyline flickers, it's a neon groove. Expert stories witness sight, unravel truth in the cosmic light. Voices in the static calling me, calling me. A cosmic rhythm setting me free. SNX, feel the vibe, let it flow. Connections glowing, don't you know? SNX, light the night, let it show. Cosmic groove, we're ready to go.
Flashbacks from the track, watch the past unfold. Got a story to tell, a courage untold. Rise up from memories, watch us take control. Echoes of yesterday feed our fight. From shadows to light, we'll take flight. In this race, embrace our might. Hold our dreams, got the future in sight. Rise up high, let courage unbind. Erase the past, keep future in mind. Every step forward, no looking behind. We own this moment, leave fear confined.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to SNX Radio and our ECETI weekend. We have our Friday, we had James Gillian earlier, and tonight we have Peter Maxwell Slattery. So this is super exciting. Rob's here with Typical Skeptic Podcast again. How you doing tonight, Rob? He's doing good. Oh, he might be muted. He's doing good.
There we go.
Yeah, so we're just oh, cool.
This is great.
Gotcha.
I'm excited. I'm excited to have Peter here. And yeah, I was muted. Sorry. No, this is awesome. It's going to be a great. It's going to be a great show.
Oh, I agree. Peter is definitely amazing. He comes with a definitely James, he said, his brother from another mother. They're great. So we'll get right into it. Peter Maxwell Slattery is an international best-selling author, speaker, spiritual advisor, and educator who helps seekers with spiritual development, self-discovery, and connection to spirit guides, soul family purposes, and finding balance and joy in earthly experience. And the God within. Oh, that's great. Peter is known as ET Contact experiencer. Excuse me. His experiences started at an early age and continue to this day with hundreds of witnesses to events. And I've looked; he's got it all on Facebook. So just like Mr. James Gillian, Peter's got it all out there too. I mean, I looked at hours upon hours of footage and their evidence, and it really is. ET Contact has definitely been established. So I can say that without a shadow of a doubt. His ability to teach is based on his own experiences in which he's learned from physical and non-physical contact with extraterrestrials, ultra-terrestrials, spiritual masters. He is a forefront in the area of paranormal, UFO, and ET contact, and his experiences in this regard are some of the most documented in modern times. That's amazing. Peter is also trained and certified as a teacher of meditation, Kundalini, and looks like yoga. He can go into that more because if I go into the names, I'll probably slaughter them. But yeah, they're very impressive. He's a Reiki master, hypnotherapy, and life coaching. He's a facilitator of worldly disciplines, multidimensional mind, and connecting the God within. Yes, he's appeared on History Channel, Ancient Aliens, Paranormal, Caught on Camera, Channel 7 Prime News, and Sunrise and many other international television programs. He's made worldwide news, been in numerous documentaries, been within or written in about magazines and guest on mainstream radio shows. So, I mean, he comes with is impeccable. If you want to know what Peter and how to reach him, his information is in, just go ahead and click the description and you should have it all right there. And then I guess before we, I want to say hello to chat. We got some great people in here tonight. Polly Roderman, our girl, Polly. Hey, we got Magneticus. Oh, he's got a brilliant mind. Definitely Tim Mothman. Nice to see you. We have Darren Ring, Mr. B and friends. Hey. And then just if I miss it, Scott Rosin, how you doing? Yeah, okay, Kelly, nice to see you here. Tiffany, hey girl.
Derek Galloway.
Yeah, did I miss anybody going down through there?
Derek Galloway.
Oh,
which is
yeah.
And that's how I know you. Derek was the first person who introduced me to you.
Oh, yeah, no, he's down. Yeah, so Woo Rider DG is Derek. I didn't make it. I was just going back down there, but he's fabulous. He's the one. Yeah, that's how I know you, Rob. That's crazy. He's great. He really is. Let's see here. I just want Kurt W30. Oh gosh, 75. Yes, I'm sorry. I just look real quick. Italian. Man, I have my computer a little bit further away. Rob,
that's Derek Galloway again on Rumble. He's commenting.
Oh, is that what's going on? Okay. Yeah, so Derek, you're like all over the place. It's nice to see you. He is definitely, I encourage you to watch his dance parties, all I got to say. So without further ado, let's bring Peter on and say hello. The lovely Peter. How are you doing, Peter? And welcome.
Good. Thank you for having me on to you both.
Yes, we're excited. We've been excited about this. So, and all that I said, why don't you, I think it's fascinating. Sounds like you had ET experiences at a young age. And how did it all begin for you?
There was a few things before 7, but really 7 is the starting point with a lot of this. I'll just move the camera a little bit because there was telepathy going on and information ahead of time that would happen. And even at that time, my mother would take me to the doctor and the doctor's like, well, none of it's bad stuff. So they didn't know what to make of it. But about a year after that, into age 8 to 12, my mum and stepdad at the time built a house and we moved into it. So when we moved into this house, this is where stuff that sort of really etched in my mind stayed, because I would wake up originally to Kurt Cobain in my bedroom. That did not make sense. Did not make sense. But over time, what would happen is, after a number of experiences, the being that appeared as Kurt Cobain would vibrate, and in between each vibration, I would see a white grey. It's not a grey, but they look very similar, but white. And sometimes there'd be a number of them. And that would happen on and off from the ages of 8 to 12. And then it was at 12 years old when I left that home and moved in with my father that I had my first sighting of, it was a disc-shaped object, more like the weight on the end of a bar, like a disc, not a flying saucer. And this thing, I surmised, was about 3 times the size of a football field. Broad daylight in the afternoon. It was in from what I remember, summer, because it was a hot day. And I was actually going down to fill up a slush puppy at the end of the street that changes color when you put the liquid into it. So that was 12. But from then on, I saw people that weren't alive. I'd seen all types of paranormal phenomena, and the sightings continued. And I'm 41 now, but it wasn't until around, I think, probably 27, which was around, if I got the math right, but it was around 2010, let's say, stuff got really active, and it hasn't stopped since 2010, which actually, that sort of got me on the news. I was contacting Australian Air Services, trying to get explanations of what I was filming and seeing with witnesses, which were objects doing crazy stuff. And not long after that, I started to see these blue orbs come into the house. They eventually materialized into 7-foot tall light beings. Now I usually see them as columns of light. But a whole host of not just them, but other intelligences started to interface, and it hasn't stopped since 2010.
Wow,
So
that's amazing.
I find that, yeah, fascinating. So you see spirits also. That seems to be a common. You grew up seeing spirits and a medium type of abilities.
So I'd say yes, but more beyond that. Now, it's really weird because I've worked with thousands of people. I've had a lot of people that are mediums come to me, and in some cases, they just don't understand, or they say that they can't connect with extraterrestrial or intelligences like ultra-terrestrials, what have you. It's spirits. But for me, it's just been norm. And I've met some mediums that, yeah, they can. I'm not saying all, but for me, I didn't understand it. And what I can tell you now, working with so many people, is it's a very common thing that people are already tapped in their psychic, and because it's woo-woo and they're not educated on it, they don't understand that that's what's going on, depending on the clear sense. So I didn't understand any of that. It's just something that later I understood. But at the time, I didn't even talk about the experiences, let alone, it's something that I didn't go to family about. I just didn't talk about until I could start filming it and people were with me. That's when I was like, all right, I can talk about this. But I think it's quite natural, but we're just not educated on these things. That's all.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, go ahead, Rob. Sorry.
I was going to say, did you have contact with what we would call benevolent beings and like malevolent beings? Like, what was it like? Was it abductions and contact, or was it all positive contact?
So, and it's still going on. Like even last night, I had 6 people here filming orbs over the sanctuary. And I mean, stuff that you'll see I'll put up in line probably in the next few weeks. It's just, there's daytime, nighttime, it doesn't matter. Predominantly my contact is what I'll describe as positive intelligences that are in line with humanity and helping with soul evolution, we could say. But it's about us being sovereign and empowering ourselves. Now, I've had more interactions with the negative through being the guy that's been called to some of the most haunted locations in Australia and abroad when I am abroad. And I have dealt with demonic intelligences. I've dealt with extremely reptilian, you name it. There's been things that I have dealt with. I'm sure there's things I haven't, but extreme cases. So my contact's predominantly been positive. I have been, we could say abducted, but it's not really that by the positive beings. There's been a few things where I've ended up in military-like installations with reptilian and greys. That hasn't happened for about 10 years. It's happened a handful of times. But there's only been, I'm sure there's more, but from my recall, a handful of times as well that I've actually had missing time, which is how I met Mary Rodwell. Well, actually before that. And me and Mary were very hesitant on doing any regressions because up to that point, I had recall of everything. And I think because it wasn't traumatic, it was more for me to digest that this led to hybrid children and experiences on board crafts in scenarios that was a lot for the human side to take note of. So it wasn't something traumatic. It was more, we could say traumatic in a way, though I don't see it that way. It's more just so far out what I experienced that I had to integrate it. So I had the regression done by Mary, and they actually kept saying to her, Pete knows all these answers, like he's got to stop being stubborn, to the point that they actually jumped in me and sat up and started speaking to Mary in a complete different voice. And I actually remember popping out of body at that time and saying, it was almost like the Brady Bunch. I saw all these different intelligences in boxes that were congregating with what jumped inside of me, which is an Elohim being. I can go into that a bit further on, but it was basically getting the go-ahead from all these different races, feline beings, lion beings, blue light beings, rainbow beings, whitish type greys, which I know is the Guardians now, Pleiadians, all these different beings were like giving the being a go-ahead of what it could and couldn't say. And after that, I had to sort of accept a lot of things that were happening, who I am, what I am, not that I'm special or anything, but it was a lot to take in. And then we did, I think, another 3 regressions I did with other people, but they were, to me, sort of useless, not in a bad way to the hypnotherapist, but it was always Pete knew the answers, and it got to stuff where it was more show, to where the beings could turn the cameras on and off, the lights on and off, and just phenomena was happening around myself and the people that were there. So everything to an extent is, yes, conscious, but my experiences, as I said, predominantly they've been positive and more about what I'll describe as soul evolution, and even interacting with what we've got as masters on this world. I'm interacting with masters on other worlds as well.
Wow, that's fascinating. Yeah. Did you want to go, Nicole or COLEY?
No, I was just, I mean, that is super fascinating. So that's pretty intense to grow up. So you're saying like around before 7, you had an ET experience. How did your family, are any of them experiencers? Did they understand it? Did they want to call a priest? Maybe like my mom? I don't know.
No, because the first thing was a doctor. Now, my dad was a police officer for 38 years, very logical, teaches karate and basketball and everything at that time. My mum had done a lot of secretary and window dressing work and modeling work, very just normal sort of just cool parents. They weren't into this led on in any way. Now everyone's experienced stuff, everyone, and sibling and what have you. But they didn't know what to do with it. But you've got to remember, I didn't speak about this till about probably around 25, 26, 27. I'd have to do the maths. But so I didn't speak about it for years, except one of the sightings or 2 of the sightings before that. So I didn't speak about it with anyone, including them. But it wasn't until later that I'd say, look, the craft's going to be here at this time. And some of them scenarios happen in broad daylight. And then, yeah, they would see the crafts. One time, one of my parents saw 2 flying saucers broad daylight. Yeah, so that it's a bit much for them and my family. It's just because it sort of hits home and they've seen it, they've witnessed it, but it's better to just think of me as Pete the Son, which is good because it keeps me grounded as well.
That's amazing. And you mentioned one of the beings that was interfacing with you was it Elohim?
Yeah, so the way I'll describe this, and I'm going to get pretty sort of not technical, I'm very layman in what I do, which I'm a layman myself, we could say, but I'm able to get these concepts and help people integrate them and digest them. So these beings eventually presented to myself that they're the Elohim. They were blue orbs originally that turned into blue light beings. Now, this is going back around 2011, that this, well, actually before then was the orbs, but until they presented themselves as beings. Now, the way I'll explain this is, imagine that your body is God, and each cell that makes up the body is each one of ourselves' highest self that's a part of that being. That is the way that the Elohim are. Now, the different colors, because they come in the colors of the rainbow and even on fire in white energy, is depending on the color depends the density of consciousness that they regulate, because there's Elohim that leave Source to go and jump into bodies and experience these places like us. So you may, and I'm not telling you to believe me, but the way I'm explaining this is everyone's higher self is an Elohim being. And Elohim is plural for gods, actually. It's not one God, it's plural for gods. And we could say this goes into Yeshua and other masters talking about the God within. So depending on the color, depends on the domain of their density that they regulate. There's creator being Elohims that from the light blueprint, they construct the physical realm. So they can put the stars, the planets, everything. We hear about even Dolores Cannon years later, I got told, talks about similar things. Well, to me, it's the Elohim that have done that. There's also beings that regulate this whole thing, as well as a council that help the individuals like us that go out within Source, even though we're one consciousness interfacing with itself, that to help them sort of what they might want to do for soul evolution, soul, experiences and what have you, up to the point that once you ascend back up, even though all lives are practically happening at the same time, you can decide to even make your own universe with its own planes and dimensions as we can divide off from this universe. So the way I'll explain this is if you imagine the core of a spider web as your higher self, each part that comes out from the spider web at an intersecting point would be another life that you're experiencing simultaneously from the highest expression, which is your God self. So the trippy thing with this is that that's beyond extraterrestrial intelligence. But which takes me to these beings can interface in even what they would create in the earlier days were crafts structured from light to interface with me and engulf me. But then I found out the way that they operate is similar to other extraterrestrials, and I'll give you a meaning with this. I've spoken to Aboriginal and Native American elders about this as well, and they were like, yeah, this is sort of normal, which is, and just imagine, use your imagination with me for a moment. Let's say you're in bed and you might hear a weird, very low noise. It's more of a feeling than a hearing. And imagine, we'll use for this intents and purposes, a flying saucer in apparition form like a ghost. You know how you can see it's sort of cloudy, you can see through it, it's misty, a ghost? Imagine a craft in that state, a flying saucer. They can land on you and they can resonate with your pineal gland to now where you think you're looking up on a craft. Now, what's happening is the crafts overlapped and you're looking up in the pineal gland on the craft. They can even pull your body and resonate your body with them so you are now physically on the craft. They can pull your consciousness even on board the craft, or they can even pull your consciousness out and put it in another body so you can interface with them on the craft. This is the complexity that I've been speaking about for so many years, and probably that and the Merkaba and the rainbow body connection is probably the main things that I've sort of I'm known for information-wise these days. Because so many experiences I tell this to, and they go, that makes sense how my experience happened now. And it's not about believing me, but it's some food for thought about the mechanics of this not just being an extraterrestrial thing, but going to higher states of consciousness where some of these beings, I'll just use an example, could be meditating on a planet in the Pleiades star cluster. And they can bilocate another aspect of them that physically materializes in your presence. Now, I'll tell you a funny story about this where I had a F me moment, excuse the language, but what happened was James Gilliland was here from the United States nearly 10 years ago. And we went and saw one of the Star Wars movies come out, which has got like Luke Skywalker years later. We just went and saw it anyway. At one of the last scenes, Luke Skywalker's fighting a whole army, and then his clothes just drop on the ground. He's disappeared, and it goes to a scene, and he's meditating on another planet. So he projected a form that could physically fight an army with a lightsaber and then dissolve. And we looked at each other. I'm like, whoever wrote that knows exactly how some of this works. And that would be a master from another world. It doesn't negate. I've been on physical craft. I've been physically taken off world. There are physical extraterrestrials. But just because they're extraterrestrial, one, doesn't mean they're enlightenment, and two, doesn't mean that they're not trying to reach higher and ascended states. They've still got angels and demons they've got to deal with, and they've still got levels they're trying to ascend to. So this is where the complexity of this whole issue also with how it dovetails into the paranormal is a very layered topic that like each thing we can go down to is just opening a whole new rabbit hole, but that's just part of the nature of it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I've heard this before, can sometimes negative beings like project as like phantoms or what we think of as a ghost? I've heard that, so that like reptilians can do that. And
yeah, and
you
then
mentioned that, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right. Continue. You're right.
Well, you were saying you saw a lot of the negative stuff when you did like haunted clearings, and that made me think of that. I said, I wonder if the ETs are masking as like ghosts or something sometimes, or
some
interdimensional.
Some can. So what's happening is they're more the negative extraterrestrial beings as well as demonics and what have you. They resonate more with that dark energy. That's why you'll get them going into those spots, because they will feed. And when other people go into lower vibratorial states, it's more energy for them to feed on. So you've got cases where that is very common. Reptilians, I would say, are master manipulators of psychic abilities, but they're capped at what they can do to a certain extent. But the thing with myself with all this is looking for the fruit in the information. How is the contact, the experience helping you be a better person, be of service, and bring love into your life? Otherwise, it's just noise and no signal. And a lot of trickster intelligences, which is important with this as well, will respond negatively if you react negatively to their presence. They'll respond positively if you respond positively to the experience, or even neutral, but it will be nonsensical. So you've really got a situation with all this where it leads to the revelation that we are one consciousness, and I'll explain this. Have you guys ever heard about the terminology of egregore or tulpa?
Yeah, thought forms, right?
Exactly. Because in a lot of cases, look, my conclusion is we're actually on a treadmill in God's mind. That's my revelation to this whole thing. We're not going anywhere. We're just experiencing itself. We're actually a tulpa in God's mind, and that tulpa, which is us, has created an egregore experience, which is collective consciousness creating experiences. And this is what's happening a lot of the time in some experiences, that if the beings are misleading, they can create a personality, an identification, very much like you may get with demonics, where they'll create, usually in some cases, and I won't say usually, but in a lot of cases, where people will start interacting with little girl spirits, and they're not little girls. They're doing that to get an in. And then there's some cases that goes into the situation of, which could be a little girl, it could be anything that you want, that let's say you go to a haunted location and there's a spirit called Gary that's been there for 20 years. He died 30 years ago, and now Gary's gone all bad and mean. You go and do research and you find out the beings never existed. But, you know, hundreds of ghost hunters over 20 years going in there, talking about Gary and trying to get contact, have actually created an egregore to where now this thing exists. It's been created. And in those cases, I'd say give it a positive personality, and you can see within days to weeks the whole personality of that egregore change, because it's actually a conscious form. We've given birth to it. So the complexity of what's what, why things are the way they are, who is who, and what's what, and what's the intention behind all of this is a vast thing. But that's why I come back to the litmus test. What's the information about you being a better person, being of service, and bringing love into your life? Because if it doesn't meet that, again, it's good, the knowledge of everything we're talking about, but otherwise you can sort of get caught on this obsessive sort of low vibratorial thing that's just knowledge feeding. But where's the wisdom that you can get from that? And there's always wisdom that can be gleaned from any knowledge. But there's part of what the trickster and the negative entities do is they want your attention going down certain lanes, because they don't want you coming to revelations. They want to keep you on this cycle. And that's part of what we could say the cycle of our consciousness in the human experience is going through somewhat. People recycling themselves here, just not getting what I'm saying, or understanding that there's a lot more out there to experience. And all you need to do that is to be in the love frequency when you transition.
Yeah. Well, I have one more question, Nicole. I was just wondering, you mentioned that the Elohim come in different colors. Is that why we have a rainbow light body? Is it to like,
It is. You could say it's the full ascension occurrence happening of. So even though we've got 114 chakras, 2 of them are outside of our field or outside of our body. The main ones we work with are the 7. And see, I'm a bit different from the Tibetans, though I'm pretty versed in a lot of the Tibetan stuff and talk to a lot of masters, and even going into Kundalini and what have you with yoga. But when you look at the 7 chakras, what have you got? You've got a rainbow. All right. Each chakra correlates to a different density of consciousness. So what's happening is when we go into the rainbow body phenomena, and Padmasambhava was one of the masters that brought the teachings here, which is a being that was lotus born, given the name Padmasambhava, spent 1,000 years in India before going to Tibet, that could levitate, that could leave handprints in rock and had disciples and was doing all the stuff like a superhero could do, literally. And there's a lot of places in those parts of the world that you can go to and see this for yourself in terms of the hands in rock and the stories and what have you. What was happening was techniques of meditation, happy thoughts, visualization, and working with those energies, and even different tantric practices and what have you, came to the revelation of the ascension body for the masses that was already known to Padmasambhava. So what this is when you reach a form of your ascension body that is beyond the physical, to where the physical body will either shrink like the size of a baby, and a rainbow will be seen in the vicinity or around it when the transition happens. The body can turn into ash and all that's left is fingernails and hair, or all of it can completely turn to ash or dissolve. And what you've got next is just rainbow energy and light seen around the area. And that's where people have shedded the physical form now and gone into the ascension body. An interesting note to add to this is Namkhai Norbu, who's no longer with us, which was a Tibetan Dzogchen master, which is the perfection body teachings, the rainbow body teachings. And this even goes into Jesus and Yeshua. Some people can bring that conclusion and different perspectives with different masters. But what Namkhai Norbu said is that this rainbow body, or the teachings of it, are actually taught in 13 star systems. Now, I've interfaced with beings from Orion that are in their rainbow body. Yeah, you could say the Elohim. Once you ignite all those different aspects, you usually go into a white light or a see-through energy, and you've got a rainbow, 360-degree rainbow body. Sometimes I'll see it like a human form, but just shimmery rainbow energy. But what's occurring is that a lot of these beings are actually ascended beings from other worlds that do not need a vehicle. They don't need a machine or a craft. What you have, and this is where I'm the one that brought this connection from my awareness, I'm not sure anyone else is speaking about this, and it's because I experienced it, is where we now go from a physical form into the Merkaba, the rainbow body. You dissolve into source, and through thought, you reappear as rainbow light wherever you want in space and time. Then the Merkaba comes online, and then you're in your physical body. You understand the matrix of God's mind. That's the ascension that I'm going into, because I've experienced it with some of these beings, and one in particular. So before I go further, I'll just ask you, do you guys know what the Merkaba is?
Yeah, I do. I've heard of them. I used to follow Gerald Clark before he died, and he, on his channel, he put the Merkaba meditation, the Merkaba meditation. Like, I know, so I'm a little bit familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Coley?
I'm about the same. I follow it too. I may slaughter the words, but I'm familiar, not to a great extent, but familiar. I would love to hear more.
No, so awesome. Yeah, so from what I'm aware, I've got rainbow body meditations and Merkaba meditation up on my YouTube channel for free that people can listen to. Go to the video one, because the video one actually gives you a visual description of what to do, which from my knowledge is different from anyone else's stuff out there. And that was from a transmission from a golden tablet that we can go into later if you want, that surpasses all this stuff that we're talking about. I'm still trying to digest this experience. But the Merkaba is a two tetrahedrons that are opposing, that are overlapped. Geometric form basically looks like the Star of David. And that is, if you go into Jewish mysticism, this is where you get into the ascension body, which I believe is a conduit before you hit the rainbow body. It can be fiery. A lot of the orbs and the crafts that we're seeing are actually beings in this, to where it's the top and the bottom spin opposing directions. But when it's that quick, it appears as a ball of light, and there's a being inside. Now, what happens is it's very much known that you've got to be at a certain level, not out of ego, but just know a lot of stuff, we could say, through self-mastery before you really want to take this on, because people, through Jewish mysticism, working with the Merkaba, or Merkaba to them, it's driven people insane, because there's a lot of stuff that can come up, and a lot of even what you can perceive as demonic entities, which is actually other yous projecting an experience to you to see how you respond to it before you attain this, because to attain this, you have to be at a certain level of consciousness. There's no right or wrong, but to attain the abilities with it, you are at a state that you wouldn't do negative things with it, partly, which is why you would attain it. So this Merkaba is your chariot, is your throne. And if we go back into biblical texts, and a lot of people that are Christian, I say, if you go back now through the Bible and read it again, what you'll start to notice is a few things, which is the Merkaba and chariot and throne. If you go through the text, sometimes they're actually talking about a chariot behind horses. Sometimes they're talking about a throne that you sit on. But sometimes, if you now bring in the word Merkaba for chariot and throne, when things are happening in the sky and paranormal things, you're going to go, these beings are in their light body. They're in their ascension body. It starts to make sense. Not only that, remember before I spoke about God, well, I'll speak about it now with God, but I spoke about flying saucers and beings. Their crafts can appear like ghosts, like apparitions. What happens in the Bible when God goes into the tabernacle or is interfacing? He's appearing as a cloud. What's a cloud? It looks like a ghost. All right. So this is where you can start to go, what's going on? This is, if you look at it from this perspective, it starts to make sense on many different levels. But it's my opinion from experience that the Merkaba and the rainbow body are interchangeable and very much connected, which is why you'll even see art depicting, and even it mentioned rainbow in the Bible, that there's like a rainbow effect around like some of these beings in the Bible, as well as ancient art depicting, let's say, Yeshua Jesus within a circle of a rainbow. He's in the rainbow body. He's ascended.
Oh, that's that is really fascinating. Yeah. So what you're saying, if I let me see if I get this, because spirits are, and that's why I see them too, like the translucent type of, where you can put your hand through it. ET, do you think that, and you're saying the different colors or different frequencies and different areas of that, oh gosh, how do I even say this? Because there's such a line, between the paranormal and through all this. Do you think that the paranormal is a lot of that projection that you were talking about from another place that they're projecting? And I guess as a master, or not exactly sure what the word you used for that was, but are we able to do that? We just don't realize it? Or
I believe we can all do everything that I'm talking about. But when you get into the paranormal, which has always intrigued me, because I've been saying for that many years that the paranormal and UFO community should really be working together, because the overlap of, and I talk about this all the time, the amount of homes and people I've talked to that thought their home was haunted, and I asked them to think about the possibility of maybe something else, which could be ET contact. And because they watched Ghost Hunters, they thought it was ghosts. And then people that think they're having ET contact because they watched, let's say, back in the day, UFO Hunters. When I open the possibility, maybe your house has got intelligent or residual haunting going on, I found this huge overlap, because the paranormal phenomena with objects moving, balls of light, beings appearing as apparitions, it's now a huge overlap. But when you start getting into this, you start to get into situations of parallel realities, time imprints, to where with residual hauntings, it could be just the energy of an event playing over and over, overlapping your home, and no matter what, it can't interact with you and you can't interact with you, and you might bleed into them, or they're definitely bleeding into you. But this opens up a whole other can of worms, if you get my drift from what you've said. Like, you're exactly right. But I believe, and part of why I've trained in so many different areas and work with so many people in the ways that I have is because I believe that all of us have access not just to God source creator, but the abilities that can come with it. But we have to be at a certain level of consciousness before we obtain those types of not even gifts, our God-given right, because why the demonics and dark energies seem like masters, I call them dark masters, but they're capped. They can't do full-blown ascension type things because their intention of what they do with what they've got access to through abilities, they're doing stuff that isn't good. So because of that, that's capped them with where they're at. Where if you are purely heart-driven, you can ascend all that and do stuff that to the point of creating your own universe with its own planes and dimensions and cells within you going out within you to experience itself for soul evolution. I can't prove that, but I've seen that, and that's been my experience. But again, I can't prove that part.
Yeah, I wanted to run my situation by you, Peter, to see what you thought. I've had like an ongoing, and COLEY's audience doesn't know this, but mine does. I've had an ongoing thing with like what you could call astral parasites, and that's what it feels like, right? But then something weird was happening at like 3 a.m. Like I would feel these things, and then I would feel like outside my window, I would hear like this would go whoosh, like as if you would hear an elevator coming to like if you're on an elevator and it started falling and it came to a complete stop. It made like that kind of sound. So I told people about it, and they said it sounds like something's portaling into you. And whatever it was, it even followed me to Florida. I went to Florida, and I'd wake up at like 2 a.m. and I'd feel something like tapping on me, you know? So I was like, I don't know what this is. I don't know if something's trying to get my attention or what's going on, you know?
Let me give you some different perspectives on this if I've got it right, all right? Is there at times you would wake up and you're frozen and you can't fully move until you completely surrender and then you've got movement again?
No, I mean, that used to happen when I was young, but not.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So what I'll
like,
invite you to, yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's just more like it seemed like astral parasitic, if that makes any sense. I've even thought, was I going to the astral and bringing something back with me? You know?
Is there any negative dreams associated with it?
Yeah, and you know, like I felt like it was happening last night, and like I woke up this morning drained. Like me and COLEY had a show with James at like 1 p.m. and I slept late, and when I woke up, I felt like completely drained. And that's what made me start thinking about it. I was like, well, maybe something's going on here. I don't know. Yeah,
no, like it's of my opinion there probably is, but let me just explain a few things that it may not be, but what it could be as well, because this is where there's a bit of an overlap that goes on as well. So while I was asking about the paralysis type scenarios, what can happen is a few different things. Is that even though you haven't experienced it since you were young, but there's a connection here. What can happen is there can be a scenario that, let's say there's a negative dream, you wake up to that and you're frozen. Usually they'll try to get you to a dream before they now try to get to you physically. And if that's the case, what I say is if you go into love, and I've been able to trial this because I've been picked up by the throat. I've seen doors ripped off its hinges. I get scratched. I've experienced it all. So, and for one period, it was a regular thing. So I saw it as boot camp to battle and figure this out where I could. And again, it's only my experience. And when you go into a place of love, if the paralysis can freeze you, but what happens is it starts to let go and it can't connect to you when you go into that place of love. Also with the contact experiences, I will say there is a type of energy effect where you almost freeze, which is the energy field of the beings. In terms of the astral, a lot of people are going out doing astral battles and things at night, and then these things will follow them back. And because you may have a disconnect between the human you and what's happening on even an astral or an etheric level, because there's different levels of the rainbow body that overlap, connect to the mental body, the emotional body. There's a physical body here, there's the astral body and what have you. Things, yes, can come back and attack you. They can attack you purely because what you guys are doing here with this show. I'm just not saying that's the case. It can happen. They want to run amok and even get you to a point to where they can work through you. We could say not even a possession, but a psychic bond connection to where they can do that without having to possess. Now, the situation with this as well is that some of what you may, this is why I'm saying it's not going to be one thing. You're picking up on it, and it usually happens around 2, 3, 4 in the morning. The other thing is you could possibly be coming back to your body, and you're waking up partly and sort of thinking there's an attack, but you're actually coming back consciously to your body, and you've woken up in real time to you coming back to your body going, what's going on? Because the human mind's got no idea except something paranormal's going on and it doesn't understand it. That is a very common thing, to where even your spirit team, extraterrestrial team will freeze you, wake you up, you're waking up, and they will even try to make it so you can't see them, because if you saw them, you would freak out. Right? So there's this overlap. But in the case of what you're describing, I would say potentially, yeah, look, the first thing you bring it to is a negative thing. You've got to follow your heart, not even with what I'm saying. I'm giving you some different ways to look at this whole thing.
Yeah.
But the other thing as well is that most of these beings in the other frequencies, they don't see you guys with your hair, your skin, and the way we're operating. They see you as a light. And to the darkness, you're like a candle that when it's 3 a.m. and things are more dormant, meaning it's not broad daylight and everyone's walking around, driving around, people are more dormant in where they are in the world, it's a lot easier to come in and do what they're doing. But also, the flip side, and I'm going on here, but it's all connected. During the day, you create serotonin. At nighttime, you create melatonin. Melatonin, once it goes through a process with the pineal gland, creates DMT. And when that is created with REM sleep, now you're interfacing through the pineal gland into states of consciousness that can appear like dreams, but can be as real as us sitting here right now. And it's just an altered state. You're in another state of consciousness while connected to the body. So I'm saying this because if you can be aware and armed with that knowledge, you can start to maybe ponder and meditate on. There's connecting to your guides and free meditations I've got that can help you work out some of this. But I would say that some things may be attachments. I believe people get a possible attachments in and out of them every day. Everyone. I don't think anyone's immune to it, which is why James Gilliland and myself are extremely staunch on at least, well, for me, doing 3 clearings a day. Me and James probably do 100. Some of them we can do in 2-3 seconds. But clearings are extremely important because it's like a spiritual shower. So because of you and what you can do and what we say is your potential that you haven't reached yet, like me, there's still potential I haven't reached. They don't want you reaching that potential, so they'll try to derail you, usually with sleep, usually attack you in the sleep time, and usually try and get you in the astral as well. So they're quite possibilities. But as soon as you wake up to this, you go into a place of love and do a clearing. Doesn't have to be mine. You could do James's. It could be anyone's. Make up your own, but go into a clearing state. This is learning spiritual warfare, bringing out the warrior within you, the warrior of light.
That's fascinating. And how do we access the clearings? Like you said, you have one and James has one.
Yeah, if you go to my website, there's a page called Clearing Techniques, and you go to James's, just look it up on the menu, and you'll see clearing techniques as well. There's slight variations. I have multiple types out there, as James does as well. But these are things that I also say they usually start working very effectively for a lot of people. But the thing is, as you move on in life, things can appear to not be working. And what I say is you can do all the clearings you want, which I recommend. But if you can't master the mind, you're in effect giving yourself a Band-Aid each and every day. Because if you can't change your mindset to see things as a cup half full rather than half empty, and always go, but this, but that, it's like a sunny day, yeah, but I'm going to burn. You've got a new car, but I've got to pay it off. Like, if you're one of those people that can always have a but, that means you're sticking in lower vibratorial states because of your outlook. So this is why something that I've talked about is that when you acknowledge that which you need to work on, you rewire the networking in the brain when you pull yourself up being triggered and you shift your thought to doing something productive. So this is why self-mastery for me and educating people, after everything I've done and I'm still experiencing, to me, the number one thing is not just clearings, but self-mastery, mastering the mind, creating a new neuron network, releasing traumas, wrong conclusions, judgments, not just of our own selves and past, but also our ancestors and also the collective of what they're going through now is absolute key. So clearings are a good start on the way to all that.
Yeah, thank you. Wow, that was fascinating. Yeah.
It's definitely so important. I guess in your techniques for in finding out what if something's cloaked or somebody's sending something like one of the parasites. Do you think that that's a possibility also, or
Oh,
do you think it's something
100%.
that's feeding?
Like, especially with, let's say, women, if somebody's having intrusive thoughts, and you can sort of guess what I'm saying there about women, doing that can create an attack unbeknownst to the person, just like, and let's say it's nothing sexual or anything of an opposite sex nature. Even somebody pissed off at you, pissed off enough, can create a form of psychic attack. So I'll give you an analogy of this. Remember, probably around 20 years ago, Britney Spears shaved her head and she just lost it.
Yeah,
Now, leading
yeah.
to that, right? Now, of course, yeah. So we don't know what she went through. We don't know if she's been part of the cabal or this, that, the other. Like, I don't know. So we can't theorize. But what I'll tell you is this. Think about how many people were having sexual thoughts about her. Think about how many people just didn't like her. And think about all the people that liked her. That is millions of people over the globe having these thoughts about one individual, all right? Even though most of the thoughts would have been, oh, look at her, she's a skank, or this, that, the other. I'm not saying that from mine, but just saying people thinking that could have driven her to that, and it was a collective psychic attack unknowns to them, that it even got worse after she shaved her head, because that was plastered all over TMZ and the news, and now you've got everyone going, yeah, she's retarded, she's lost it. Sorry for the language, but she's lost it. That's created a collective psychic attack. So this happens to presidents, celebrities, people that are thrown on mainstream media for whatever reason. And people, because they're not aware of how powerful their thoughts are, and you've got enough people thinking one thought or a common thought about a particular person, you're now creating, you could say in a way, an egregore collective psychic attack on that person. And if they're not well versed in what we're talking about, they've got not much hope of staying cool. They're probably going to lose their crap, which is why a lot of people go to drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That just made a whole lot of sense. So that's probably part of it. They're not realizing that all this energy and what they're putting in is projecting onto somebody. Oh wow.
And like I said, even you guys, just say there's just a friend that's upset with you, and it's nothing major, but just that they're upset could even create you to go in a depressed state, and not knowing it's just somebody's pissed off thought about you. It's just you're depressed and you don't know why. This is why I say to know our own thoughts, our own energies, and clear, and prayer can help shift all this. But if you're not armed with that knowledge, it can even derail your life. People could be in 20 years depression, all because of people having negative thoughts or what have you. So, but I do think working with a lot of people, the biggest thing that usually prevents people is their own thoughts about themselves and their worthiness and their guilt. It's like it seems to be easier that people can forgive others, but they can't forgive themselves.
So
and that's
true.
where love and compassion is absolutely key. What's that, Rob?
I was going to say, do you think things are sent to us, like as for us to master, for our own self mastery? Like we're supposed to learn things like on our journey. Could it be that as well?
Well, this is the thing where I say seeing the cup half full is that all these are opportunities for growth. And it doesn't mean it's okay. Like I say, with the child trafficking, with all the negative stuff in the world, I'm not saying, and this is where there's free will involved, that yes, there are soul contracts that we could say that we set up before coming into an experience. But this is where the spiritual community get me, and I've been vocal about this. And I'll use an extreme case. Let's say a woman's raped, and somebody literally has the gall to say to her, oh, that might have been part of your soul contract. Now, I will say, on the odd case, maybe, but come on. Right? Yeah. Come on. Somebody's free will has crossed on this person's free will. Now, there is self-mastery in that meaning, right? I can be a victim of this and go in depression, which, you know, rightly they could. But they could also use it as fuel to overcome that, learn about themselves. Again, not making what happened okay, but for soul growth and evolution. So we're in a really tricky situation with what I'm describing here. But like I say, there are blessings in burdens if we can take them. And sometimes in life when we're put in extreme traumatic situations, there's fruit to be gleaned of grabbing strength from our inner core and finding not just the strength within, but fruit that we're capable of experiencing and giving others that we wouldn't have got otherwise, which is usually why people that have gone through similar traumatic experiences can be great guides in physical form to people that have gone through similar things, because they've experienced it. They'll never understand completely what another went through, but they've got empathy and understanding to a point. And that's what we need more of for each other. But it is a thing where these experiences are something that there's a lot to be learned in them for soul evolution and soul growth if we can take it. But it's each person's on their own journey and each person is where they're at. And only us individually can sort of see that fruit or take the courses that we see we can take. And this is why I say you can't judge somebody because, and I'm guilty at times saying stuff, but I think we all are. But the point is, like, unless you've been in somebody's shoes, you don't know what you would do. And not only that, who's to say they're not doing better in this lifetime than another lifetime, that they've progressed much? It's just not where you think they should be. That's where there's this, very convoluted situation that's occurring.
Yeah, I was going to say, not to change the subject, but I wanted to ask you about this as well. Do you have an opinion on like the simulation theories and holographic reality? But on top of that, a lot of people are talking about the soul trap right now, that we're in like a simulation and that like our souls are trapped here and that we're forced to reincarnate over and over again. Like that's a big topic in our community, right? Like, yeah. And, yeah. And so I wanted to ask you about the holographic universe and then like the soul trap theory on top of that.
It's real if you believe it's real. And let me explain. I've been writing about that for over a decade, and I'm sure there's many before me that's talked about it. And my conclusion is that we're in simulations within simulations within simulations in God's mind. That egregores, the tulpas within it have created egregores that have created simulations within simulations. It totally is a scenario. Let me tell you an experience I had probably 12, 13 years ago, which was an experience that I saw everything from grass to people to places to the earth made up of purple hue dodecahedrons. Everything. And then I saw that other planets and the satellites, their moons, were made up of purple hue dodecahedrons in our sun, our star. Then I saw all the stars and this galaxy is a purple hue dodecahedron and the universe is a dodecahedron. And I had to stop because when I got to that point, I looked out and I saw the other gods, the other universes with their own planes and dimensions, all made up of purple hue dodecahedrons. I was seeing a fractal blueprint. Now, later I had people come to me saying that scientists say that the blueprint to the universe in geometric form is a dodecahedron. My answer to that is maybe, but if you change your frequency, I believe it's all made up of Merkabahs. You change again, it's made up of triangles. You change again, it's made up of squares, depending on the frequency you're resonating on. That, to me, was the light blueprint of the geometric structures of simulations within simulations, and I was possibly seeing one of the core frequencies, which was source, which was the dodecahedrons. Now, this is why I said it before, and I've done it before when somebody's transitioned and guided people when they're transitioning, when they're dying, so-called dying and leaving this body, is that my recommendation to surpass hours of conversation on this, that, the other, is very simplistic to me. Demonic and negative beings cannot emanate love. They can betray it, but when I'm in the presence of Elohim or certain Pleiadians and other energies, my bodily reaction is bliss, love, and I'm naturally crying. You can't help it. Even if you can compose yourself and converse with them, your bodily reaction is tears from bliss and the love. The negative can't portray that. If a light does not give you that feeling of awe and love, that would be something that I would question. And I'll take it to another area. So what I say is people follow the love when you transition. Thinking of loving your memories, loving experiences, the love that you got for a child, a partner, this, that. You're a frequency match, and I'll explain it like this. Have you ever heard of Dr. Eben Alexander?
Yeah.
He wrote a book called Proof of Heaven, and he was a brain surgeon, and he died. What got me was the first thing, I think, if I've got this correct, he saw what was like murky sort of blood walls, and he didn't say this, but he was basically describing grey and reptilian faces, and it wasn't a good thing. Now, something happened where he changed his thought and his frequency, and he started to go. And I won't go any further because I recommend people read. I don't want to destroy the story because it's a well worth story. But when he changed his thought, the realms changed that he experienced. The more loving and blissful he got, the more loving and blissful the realms got. Your vibratorial state depends on the television station you were tuned to. An analogy for the realm that you now tune into. All right, that's the analogy because we've got how many television stations being broadcasted, we can't see it. You go into a state of consciousness that resonates with one. Now that's the reality. Right now we're on channel Earth. That's what we're interfacing with. Now there's frequencies within frequency. You can be in a loving state in Earth. You can be in a hateful state on Earth. But the core frequency you're in is, let's say, planet Earth right now. But in the higher realms and with a lot of these even extraterrestrial beings, when you interface, everything's decided upon frequency. Their names are frequency. The communications are frequency of feeling. It's packets of information. So that's a situation where on the realm of imagination, as James Gilliland says, everything is real because everything is imagination. It's just your intention and you aware of what you're aware of in terms of what we're saying. You can now navigate and steer the ship where you want it to go rather than be a victim to it.
Wow. So kind of coming full circle on this whole conversation, it all tied together because like what you're saying is that we're basically creating our reality, and depending on vibration and frequency is what our vibration and frequency is what we can experience, and thought forms and egregores as well we can manifest, right?
Definitely. And look, this is where the mastery comes into it, is stuff's still going to happen. There's going to be bad things that happen, but we're the ones to decide what we can do in a situation, where we can learn the fruit. And sometimes there's a thing called radical acceptance. You've got to be okay that you're not okay with whatever it is that's happened. You've got to feel that. You've got to sit through that. You've got to process that, but you don't live in that. Because if you live in it, you're going to be a victim. And this is why I've called the sanctuary, which is home to ECETI Australia, Jaya Sanctuary. Jaya in Sanskrit means balance of masculine and feminine. It means self-mastery, and it also means victory. I want people to be victorious in everything that they do in their life, not be a victim. And that's through self-mastery. And, of course, we need a balance of masculine and feminine. So each opportunity is an opportunity for soul growth and learning something about yourself. And that's usually what I can tell you with this, is that your experiences are purely about you, not anyone else. Unless you're doing something like CE5 and you're having group experiences, which is about you doing it in a group collective. But in your day-to-day and just personal experiences, they're about you. And in that, you find your part on your mission, your journey, and actually in effect of being a part of the collective, what you sort of should be doing through passion and purpose. Though you are encouraged to always endeavor and endure new things and have new endeavors. But that's why it's very tricky, the contact situation, because it's really individualized to each and every person. And in the end, everything from demons to angels to extraterrestrials is all just a thought form in God's mind. That's where it can get so trippy, to where that can lead to other states of consciousness.
Wow, that is, and the two people I said, they don't understand how much of this is inside work. It's not like you're physically, are you on the same page with that? Like with the ascension process and all that, it's inside. It's not like our physical body necessarily.
Yeah, well, like I say, I've been saying it for years, that you change within that projects outside of yourself. Now, it does take some work. But where attention goes, as the old saying goes, that's where energy will flow. So that's why I say fine tune, look at your situation, even with what's going on right now. I would recommend, if people don't know what they want, they're going to stay either exactly where they are or things will change, but you're just basically floating in a pool. You're just there. You're just here being. But when you've got some goals and things to work towards and you connect an emotion to that, some of that can be actually really quickly brought into manifest. And that's just an example of what's happening in God's mind on a grander scale, you could say. Its motivation is soul growth, soul evolution, experiencing itself.
Yeah, it's so important. Somebody too, if you're explaining that we are God, or God was sin, or, the Christ consciousness, or however, your term is. Somebody was asking when you said before about God, that what do you mean by that, or who is that? I was just wondering if you would clarify that.
What I mean by that is the one consciousness that, like James says, that encompasses all consciousness. It's you are it, I am it. Everything you see is projected from it. It is everything. It's not a male, it's not a female. It loves us all unconditionally, and it shines inside each and every single one of us. That's what I mean by God. It's beyond being owned by a religion, though a lot of these saints, sages, and masters are real, like Yeshua. These beings are real. The angels are real. The demons are real. But God is not a man, though I can say that God could project a man and interface with you if that's what's needed to interface with you. But that's not it. It's a way to interface with you.
I have a question. Do you believe that the religions were created by the Anunnaki to control us? Because the reason why I say that, and I'm not against anybody's religion. People can believe what they want, but it seems like the Abrahamic religions, the three major ones, cause a lot of fighting and stuff like that. And I was thinking, well, a lot of people share that opinion that the religions were created for control, and that they're I don't. Did you have an opinion on that?
I think, and it's just an opinion. I don't think anyone knows to the full extent, because even we could say other worlds have had their own forms of religion in their own way, their own spiritualism. When I've interfaced with some of these beings, they talk about something that would be equivalent to source. They've just got a different terminology for it depending on who they are. You've also got to understand that even I read a book years ago, I think, about Father Chinoquet, which in it he wrote that even Catholics, I don't think even for 100 years, or maybe around 100 years now, could actually read a Bible. Before that, only priests could have the Bible, and they were only allowed to read certain parts of it with authorization, from my memory. You've also got a situation, let's say at the Vatican, that you go in there and you've got types of reptilians sitting behind the Pope, and you've got reptilian eyes in the roof of the building and things like that. There is Illuminati symbolism, but this is what the archons, the reptilians, the demonics do. They infiltrate these things, and they bring in information that makes you not only question, but can steer the narrative unknowingly to the victim's part of something. I think all religions, to an extent, when you look at the principle of love and prosperity and justice and ascension, is in there. They've got these things. From what from my sort of perspective, again, I'm not right on everything, but the killing of innocent people, there's situations that we could even go, all right, God, we don't know how God would think unless we're in that God consciousness state. It's like there is times called for that you need to step up and say, no, this isn't okay. And some of these beings don't take no for an answer. So there may be cases that violent scenario, though I don't endorse it, may be called for in ancient times, that some of these violent scenarios may be true and may be just. And there's a lot of things through archaeology that we can correlate and go, this place existed, maybe this battle took place, this, that, the other. But what happens is that the cabal, the fallen Elohim, which are the negative ones that created the AI, that the reptilians see as a god, that whole network, they knew when we would have iPhones, iPads, computers, the internet. They knew when things were happening, because a lot of this is happening outside space and time. They can operate temporally, which means time travel wise, they understand this. It's like anything good. If you know how to infiltrate it, you can mix the original teachings with negative teachings, and now you can control where it goes. Just like it was put to me a long time ago, was that the teachings of Yeshua could not be hidden because they were so well known by word of mouth. And because of that, they couldn't really manipulate that, because it was the teachings are known by word of mouth. So what you do is you put it in a book with other information, just like also knowing that the keys are the Keys of Enoch is actually another book I reckon people should read. But the original book of Enoch, which apparently I think in Ethiopia was a part of the Bible, it's not part of the other Bibles that we know of. So who and why is that? And when you go into the Dead Sea Scrolls, you see a lot of correlations with stuff that I would say, if you see a lot of correlation, there's probably something to it. The bottom line is I don't have an answer to it, but I'm looking from a point of experience and interfacing with these beings that angels and demons on the extremity of each side, with us down here being earth humans with extraterrestrials and another 90% of thought form realms. And then you've got the angelic kingdom up here, and you've got the demonics that are, let's say, on the opposing end. These other worlds have to deal with angelics and demonic entities as well. And so when you look at that and you pull everything out from a broader perspective and go, oh, we don't know what we don't know, but be open-minded to take the knowledge, what's going to happen is you've got a better playing field with it all right now. And the situation we've got, unfortunately, is a lot of this is fighting over whose God is the proper God and whose way of living is the right way of living, when people pull love out of the whole scenario and don't see what's prosperity and love for all. That one God that encompasses all consciousness, that is what it wants. Soul evolution. And unfortunately, in the human experience and all experiences, I think, trying times helps elevate people. Just because everything's not perfect doesn't mean that's not the way it's meant to be. How are you going to grow unless there's things that you strive to do better, to learn the mistakes? You went from an all-knowing state to lose that state, to grow into that state again, but you need to experience all. You can't just experience it one way. And I think people need to follow their heart with compassion, not just for themselves and others, on the way that they live. And that's why I think religion is, to an extent, a great thing, because if they're built around love and compassion, a great thing. I just don't think it's productive when it gets to not questioning and not scrutinizing, not from a negative perspective, but for knowledge. How does this work? Why is it that way? Is there another perspective on this? Just like the perspective of the chariot, the Merkaba. Once you hear that Merkaba is chariot and it's a light body, a lot of that, the biblical aspect, starts to now make sense. But you talk to normal Christians and they go, no, it means this. And it doesn't make sense, but they blindly believe it. Blind belief has got us in the situation we're in right now. And because of that, that's an unfortunate situation we're in of, I believe this without any investigation. That is a dangerous place, not just to be, but to live.
If you're not able to question, that's like a huge red flag that I say run for the hills on that one.
And we've gone through that the last few years, as everyone's aware of, especially here in Australia, the most probably worst place you could have been, which is where I was for a few years.
But yeah, I'm sure. I can't imagine of all the obstacles and things that have been put in your way, especially being, I know how the attacks go and, with things like that. We do have a question. To get too far away, people want to know, well, Polly here, girl Polly says, where does disclosure stand in Australia compared to the US? And I guess what is it like there for the experiencers? Is it something that's more accepted? Is it?
If you came here, you'd be very surprised that Australia would be like another state of the US. Really. A lot of people come here and they can't believe the music, the clothing, the food, everything, even politics to an extent. It's very similar, but it's not. It's less woo-wooed on the television now compared to what it was for me when I was being thrown everywhere. It's evolved a lot, but we're really looking to the US on how the US is operating and dealing with it. Partly, I think, because of all the national security interests we have joint with all the US joint Australian bases we have here, and the Five Eyes and having each other's back. I think it's more that people are open to it. There are UFO organisations, groups, conferences, things like that, just on a lot smaller scale, because we've only got about, I think, 25, 26 million people compared to the 330 plus that you guys have got. Apparently, the land masses are almost the same size. So that gives you an idea how big Australia is. But it's something that we're sort of seeing what, my opinion is, seeing what the US does, and then we sort of may have a news piece on it. Still play the bloody X-Files music in the background and, have a bit of a laugh, throw something out there and move on with it is basically where it's at. But it's better than what it was at least a decade ago.
Yeah. Oh, I bet it can only improve, I think. We have another one too. Somebody was asking what makes a pulsing sound. I hear sometimes in deep pulsing sounds from that. They were talking about like spirits, if you had any idea
Yeah.
what that could possibly be.
Again, follow your heart, as I say with anything. But the food for thought for whispering portals, I would say, is it possibly could have been an extraterrestrial vehicle in apparition mode. That usually when you hear that, it's more going through like a pulsating, like whoop, whoop, but extremely deep. Sometimes that can coincide almost like a high pitched ringing noise, like a Tibetan singing bowl. The other thing is too is when this is going, it possibly could even be a spirit. That it could even be an extraterrestrial, it could be an angel. There is an overlap of experiencing something very similar to what they're describing when something's in your energy field. So right now, if you were sitting with me and at close proximity, our light body, which is an orb of light with all the rainbow body, the Merkaba, everything in it, it would be overlapping each other. So just because you may not see the apparition, the spirit, the ET, the angel, it could still be in your field, overlapping your energy field, and that pulsating could be you feeling their energy body.
That's fast. Wow, that's fascinating.
I never thought about it like that. That is fascinating. And two, Scott Rosen, he asked, he's a great one. He asked about, and this is a good question because it was ran through my head a few times. What is your take on hybrid programs overseen by mantises, type aliens, seeing gray types or hybrids, and what are they like down there? I know here, like we've, like the super space program or things like that, where, people were kind of brought into that. I guess, is that known there? I'm assuming they probably have the same
in the
type
community. The communities know. The communities are very well linked, I think, now around the world with everything to do with what's been mentioned in a lot of areas. Anyway, if not, people hear about it and they go down a rabbit hole. The mantid beings, it's a very mixed bag. My experience has been that they're extremely advanced, neutral, and they're just coming at things from a completely different place. There is a scenario that a lot of races are actually, and even with my movie Multidimensional, John Vivanco goes into it that I'm a multidimensional experiment. That's what Pete is. That's why so many races are taking stuff from me, and I've got quite different things with my genetics to a point. Some of it I can prove. I could probably prove some more stuff, though. I'm inclined to be a human experiment because there's, let's say, governments and agencies that want to test me, but we're in a situation that the Earth human is a conglomerate of many extraterrestrial races, including angelic capabilities in a physical form. What we can do, not quite anybody else can do in the way that in the trans-dimensional senses we can as physical human beings. That's why there's a heightened emotion. That's why there's height in being upset or positive. And a lot of these beings are trying to glean aspects of us into them, and some of these greys in some cases, I'm not theorizing, I know for a fact, are us in the future, and they're coming back trying to rectify some situations. So the hybrid programs are real, but the intention behind it is different with each group. It's like, let's say you we'll put it into dating. Let's say you date 5 people. I'm sure that the intention behind each person is going to be, if not slightly different at the very least, or in some cases, it may be just completely different from each person. You've got that with extraterrestrials and transdimensional and ultra-terrestrial intelligences, just different motivations, different intentions. And it doesn't mean good, bad, it's just indifferent. And unless you're them, you may not understand how they operate, which is why in a lot of cases, it can seem that they're emotional and less, but that's just how they operate. It's like you meet somebody with autism and you could say the same, but they're more tapped in and more frequency sensitive than we are. But because, they're autistic, we just think, they're autistic. No, they can be feeling things 100 times more than us. But the intention, getting back to what you're talking about, is going to be different. Even with, you see, let's say 10 mantids, maybe 2 or 3 of them are part of the specific same race. Who's not to say the rest of them are completely different offshoot races that have got different agendas, grown up in different environments. They've evolved completely different. This is how layered this topic really gets. It's very, very layered with intention.
Oh, true. What do you, I guess your take on some of this stuff, like what are they looking for? Because it's my understanding, and maybe you have a different take on this, when they come and they're trying to identify certain people and bring them in, like here, I know they may use like gifted and talented programs, learning different, different tools like that. Are they just, they don't know? And how would, I guess, what are they waiting, or why are they trying to identify certain people in your dealings, I guess, and understanding of it, if that makes sense?
It's very layered again. That's not, say, what I'll invite you to think about, both of you, is that not all this is going to be black with the answer or white. The grey is where most of this is. And my little joke is it's beyond 50 shades of grey as well, right? So we've got a scenario where some of this will be agencies. I even spoke to people here years ago that said with some of the black helicopters, they've got technologies that can scan on a soul level. I'm not saying this is real, but who's who, meaning on who's got certain gifts, traits, and abilities already, even though I think we all do. So we've got a situation which is very, I can tell you right now that it's very similar in Australia to America, with people going into schools, throwing out certain IQ tests and saying who's getting what results, who's very empathic, who's very psychic. And because we're not educated, these teachers or these people coming in to test these kids at school, they know like that. So it's very much similar across the board from the United States to here. How they're brought into projects down the track have a number of factors, whether they time travel back and try and get these people, if they've gone down a different path and they've done something harmful to the projects, or let's say dissolve certain scenarios of, I'm only using this as an analogy. Let's say somebody in 20 years, they dissolved the CIA. Well, you could have people in the CIA and black projects and that have time traveling technology go back and steer the person who dissolved the CIA 20 years on. They steer them and give them a job to get into a project so that doesn't happen in the future timeline. So you've got many different ways and scenarios on a temporal level that people are identified, usually from being young, but usually it's also with people that are not even found out in these circumstances, that are experiences like myself, that they keep an eye on. They can sometimes use intimidation tactics to keep these people quiet, because not only have they got these abilities that you might find in certain people, which I actually believe we've all got these abilities to an extent, but they can be a threat to the status quo of bringing ascension and new ways to the world, a new era. And that's sort of more of the threats. But the way that they can identify is not just through schooling and the education system bringing these people in. It's through and it's going to get a lot easier, and it's already started, is through AI and through AI monitoring. Because not only can you monitor what people are doing, there's fields and energies coming out from these devices that even certain grey extraterrestrials and others can travel basically the Wi-Fi network, the internet, and even come out of these devices and interface. But there's also stuff that can be read about us energetically, fed through these devices back to stuff beyond the NSA. And that's where it is at now. And it's artificial intelligence working in sync with these black agencies that can have the capability to do exactly what I'm describing. And so that identification process, compared to how it was 20, 30, 40 years now, is basically it's going to phase out. If not, in a lot of cases, it already would have.
Oh, that yeah. Oh my goodness, that is so true. AI, that's a whole nother challenge ahead of us. But I figured that was doing something sort of inventory wise. But yeah, the people don't realize how much we are being monitored, especially here.
Not only that, everything you say and everything you do is stored in, you could say it's the Akashic records, but in God's mind. So either way, like, nothing goes unheard, nothing goes unknown. It's known in the ethers.
Yeah.
Do you have a question, Rob, or do you want me to take another one?
I don't have any other questions. I was seeing. I wanted to ask you: do you have a lot of people that you deal with? A lot of people who are targeted? Because I interview a lot of people who feel like they're targeted. Like, a lot of experiencers feel targeted. Do you deal with that a lot?
Not super amount, but I have a number of people over the years that have been targeted individuals that have come to me. And as I say to people, like, I do appointments, and that's what goes to keeping the sanctuary and everything going, along with the books and everything else. But my thing is, I say to people, which people sort of spin out about, only come to me if you're feeling it in the heart. Otherwise, don't waste my time. And if you're coming to me because there's something in your heart telling you to, which maybe I can assist you with, that maybe other people can't in a way that I can. Just like if I give somebody a reading, they go, when do I come back? And I'm like, if you ever come back, make sure you want to come back. But I haven't done my job if you feel you need to come back. You know what I mean? So people might keep coming, people getting readings. To me, I haven't done my job. It doesn't mean don't come back, but as I say to people, really make sure, give it a few months. But I've helped targeted individuals. Really what this is about, what it comes down to, even with the information when I'm connecting with their guides and the higher self, is them empowering them, whether it is a targeted individual, whether it's somebody that's going through an awakening, whether it's somebody going through attacks. The note to that would be empowering oneself. That's what we could say is the underlining statement and message 9 times out of 10 from our team.
Yeah. And then I was going to say, what advice do you have for people who might feel like they might be having ET contact, but maybe they're new to this and they're like scared or confused? Like, what should they do?
Well, I would first research it. I would also test the waters with very close people to you explaining something. Even reach out to, there's people like Mary Rodwell. You've ever had her on too, haven't you? I've worked with, been good friends with Mary for years.
Mary for a while. She's amazing.
Yeah.
I love her. Yeah, great.
Yeah, even just look in your own neck of the woods who are into, is there any UFO organizations or groups? Because even usually the UFO groups may have somebody that they can just send you to and go, oh, this person deals with abductions or experiences, talk to them. So that's what I would recommend. But also, number one, knowing that you're not alone. You may think you're alone. And that's why I still what I do, because originally when I came out, I was the only person in my area that would go and investigate, talk to people, help people. And it still is the drive now that why I do what I do is I go back to those days when I was in tears and I was alone. I had no one's help. And I know there's people doing that. The flip side is I can't help everyone. And I'm extremely busy. And I'd say, look firstly in your area, because the more that you can have somebody that you can catch up and have a coffee with, that you can bounce your experiences off, the better if you've got somebody that you can really get to. And you might be surprised who's living in your neighborhood or in your environment. Like an example of this is, I can't tell you the amount of times I've gone to ECETI, and on a weekend, people have met each other, become really good friends, and then they realize they live like 20 minutes from each other for the last 20 years and didn't even know each other. And they had to meet that weekend at the ranch, and now they got a lifelong friend. So the universe will bring our soul tribe to us through mysterious circumstances. But the number one thing is know that you're not alone. If you need help, call a helpline if it's that bad as well, because there are people that are going through extreme things that they think about doing stuff that you don't want them doing because they don't know what to do. But that's why I'd say reach out, not just to one, a number of organizations. For me, I contacted probably like 8 organizations and people multiple times, and the only person that ever got back to me was Mary. And that's just the way it was. Now, whether they're taking you serious, whether they're not, the emails are getting blocked, they don't see it, whether they purely don't want to work with you or assist you, it could be all that. Who knows? But that's why, don't give up. Just because you've tried to reach out to one person doesn't mean you leave it there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And then my last question for you is, what do you see in the next 5 to 10 years for like ET contact with humans? Like, do you see it becoming more intense? Like, would more people? I mean, what do you envision? Like, do you see ever like that like typical landing on the White House lawn? I know that sounds funny. Like, what? And I guess that what I'm saying with that is, do you think the ETs will eventually give us full disclosure? And obviously it's not something we should look to the governments for.
It is. It depends on who's who. Like, you ask people, they think disclosure might have been with Dr. Gray in 2001 at the press club. Other people, they've had their own experience. That's disclosure. Them mentioning the Tic Tac, releasing videos, for some that's disclosure. I would remind people that even though that all this is going on, a lot more people are awake now than ever, but it's still a very small amount of the populace. So I have to remind people, you can't go full on with this stuff because a lot of people still aren't there yet, but more are than there ever have been. With that said, with dates, times, this, that, the other, I'll be very wary because we see that come and go. We see events come and go and happen. But my focus, instead of looking at that scenario, is I think it could happen anytime in the next sort of 50 years. The way I would put it is probably the next less than 50 years, but it could be overnight if we could get over our differences. Literally, it could be an overnight thing that we could take it in a productive manner. One of the examples was said to me that it could be the truth wrapped in a lie. That the first scenario of a full disclosure would be a lie, but it's based around the truth. My thing is, when I look at all this, is I pull back and I bring it back to something completely basic, but away from that, which is when the first thing I do every morning when I get up, I ask God, Source Creator, how can I be a vehicle for you to work through? And that's where I'm at now. All this is just, it is what it is. It's like me, I've got physical trace, I've got landing evidence, I've got, it actually goes in the thousands now, the witnesses that I've got. I've got thousands of video, most of it in 4K and a lot of it during the day, broad daylight. Wow. Some of it's extremely clear. Like, you can see all this online. And at the end of the day, that's not going to, if people's mind is this is AI, this is CGI, this is hoax, it's real, that's a balloon, that's an, you know, that's this, that's that, this is an ET vehicle, that's an ET being, that's an angel, whatever their come from is, that's their come from, and I'm not going to be able to change that no matter what. And I learned to be complacent and at peace with that and humble about that. The reason I'm bringing this up is we don't know what tomorrow brings, which is why I say live every single second like it's your last before you transition and make the best of it, because at the end of it, are you going to be worried about if disclosure happened or not? Because I can tell you now, when you leave this existence, all the questions you have, you will have available to you and already know, and laugh that you forgot about it. I know that because I've experienced it and I can't prove it again. But a lot of these things that seem like issues aren't issues in the bigger scheme of things, which is a simulation in God's mind on soul evolution. So it's not to belittle the question, but there's so many scenarios and resonation frequencies that we could be on, and fields within fields of different outcomes coming into being, that my thing with all this, even if I was an extraterrestrial, is am I living my life to the fullest, and how can I be a vehicle for God? That's where I think that should come to, because in that does come the disclosure to the individual. And enough of us do it, it will be on a collective level too.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree. What is your take? We had a question before I just went past it from Scott Rosin about the Atlas. What is the exact?
Oh, the Atlas thing that's floating in space that's possibly a ship. I haven't really looked into it, though. I told James, not knowing about this last week, that we've actually got 3 massive ships in our vicinity right now that were predominantly Pleiadian and Orion, but there are Arcturians and Sirians on board as well as other beings. It was like a conglomerate. James tuned in and got the same thing. But these things are happening all the time around us, and they can be totally cloaked. But that definitely could be. I've actually seen crafts that look like a rock, and they're not a rock, but yeah, that's like nothing new. So it is plausible. I forget the scientist's name that's proposing this, but it's definitely plausible. I just haven't looked into that specific scenario with the Atlas at this time.
Yeah, it's a James. We asked him on it too, and he kind of had the similar. He said it's basically an observer that's coming through, and then it's kind of he had a whole explanation for it. I'd have to go back on it now. Andrew Rowland says, has Pete Maxwell received any ET messages of future Earth changes or changes in humanity? Do you get kind of any of those messages with? I've never really kind of gone that way, but a lot of people have.
No, good question from Andrew. So back to the days of what's now Rise TV, but was Edge of Wonder, a lot of people saw the interviews and the prophecies and predictions and things I was saying have occurred. And I have even done date times, magnitudes of earthquakes like James down to terrorist type events. I only did that originally because if I was being lied to, I wanted to ruin my reputation that bad I was useless to anyone. But the events happened how they were meant to happen, and this, that, the other. With that said, we are seeing and we are living in the changes that have been foretold, not just by me, but by James 40 years before me, going back to many before James. Now, you've got a scenario where we now know through cycles with solar maximum and minimum that when we go into maximum, it's like this, right? There's not really prophets, though we could say there's prophets, people that speak for God. But if you understand science to an extent, in terms of patterns, you can predict anything you want. Alex Jones has done a great job. He got information even about the towers before it happened and who did it and this, that, the other. David Icke, he says the same thing. He knows the game plan. You can do that. You can prophesize what's going to happen because you know the game plan. The simplistic game plan is this, is that when the sun is doing what it's doing, that energy affects not just us, but all planetary bodies. But in our case, the tectonic plates move. You get earthquakes, volcanoes, twisters. You get a whole lot of other things, including social and economic upheavals, because people's energetic fields, as well as the collectives, you go into paranormal investigations with a fear cage. That's when you're in a basement, high EMF readings, people get nausea, they feel paranoid, they're being watched. The list goes on and on. You're describing what's happening in times of solar maximum because the sun's hitting us and smashing us with huge EMF waves. And you get the earth changes. And then what you also get is the social stuff. So this is why on huge flare days, people can be looking down, bumping into each other, clumsy, having accidents. But these changes is source energy coming through the galactic center, going through a neuron type network to all the stars. Those stars are affecting their local systems, and it is ascension energies that are coming through. And either way, these cycles, like the yogis talk about, these cycles every 25,000 years we've seen with other civilizations, they sometimes rise and fall. They also sometimes rise and they ascend to different frequencies and become ultra-terrestrials or even spacefaring through the ascension process. So a lot of this and the earth changes and what's to come are done in a 4-part book series called the Book of Shiji 2, 3, and 4. So the first one's just purely the Book of Shiji, which is channeled material from myself. I've also got another 4 books on my personal experience that I actually go into this over the last, basically since I was a kid with different messages, but predominantly since 2010, through the contacts, the information that I've been given, some of it that's even been apparently proved with science in time as well. I've done 13 books all up, and there's a lot of free content and talks like this that are online as well. But the earth changes. It's one of those things that we have to go through chaos to get to where we've got to go to. Now, the Illuminati say chaos or order out of chaos. I say harmony out of chaos, and I'll explain why. If you see CinemaScope, you know when they play music and you see the geometry from the music? Have you seen that before? What's that analogy is your frequency. What happens when you go from one note and you go to another note? There's chaos between the harmony with each key because each key's got its own geometry. You can't go from one state to the other without chaos. The chaos is where we elevate if we decide it, or we can decline we can say pitch. What pitch do you want? Do you want to raise in pitch or do you want to down in pitch? The chaos is a good sign if you can handle it and know, like all things, the wheel turns. It's just short-lived.
So true. Somebody asked you, I know that we're running short on time, Peter, and I'd love to have you back for a part 2 because I think we just kind of got started here. You're absolutely wonderful and brilliant. We had a question from Spiritual Ascension. They want to know where you're located in Australia. If you're in a certain area, they said that they must.
Yeah, no, I'm in Victoria. I'm not actually anywhere except sort of between Corowa and Rutherglen. I'm actually on the Victorian side of the Murray River. So I'm about 3.5, 4 hours from Melbourne, northeast. I'm actually 30 minutes from my hometown, which is Albury. I grew up in Albury, Wodonga in Lovington there. So that's originally where I'm from.
Wow. Yeah, they had Victoria down, so they must, I don't know if there's a different dialect, but they were very interested in that. So that's amazing. Yes, and I guess, I know that tonight we're just kind of wrapping up just a little bit early. Is there anything that you, like I said, it would love just to set up a part 2, because just to continue this is absolutely, you've just brought forth some like mind-blowing information. So is there anything that you would like to address or leave the people with, I guess, until we resume on part 2?
Yeah, my message would be think for yourself, forgive others, and just do the best each day. If you can do better than you did the day before, and there'll be days that you go backwards. It's just the way that it is. But you being the best you is you contributing to this disclosure and the awakening. You are the disclosure. You are the ones that are waking people up, even if it's purely smiling at somebody and not talking about spiritual stuff. If you give the shirt off your back to help somebody, you're doing your part. And so are your loved ones, even if they're not so-called awake. If they would help their fellow man by giving their shirt off their back, they're a good person. They don't need to know this, though you can educate them. But just be the best you and be kind to yourselves.
That's awesome. Rob, did you have anything for Peter before we let him go tonight? I know you got another show to do.
Thank you. This is amazing. I really enjoyed this. You have a really good way of thinking about things, and I love your outlook on stuff. It's really refreshing. Thank you, really. I really enjoyed this.
Yes, thank you so much, Peter. And you really do. You have a great way of not only answering a question, but extending that, and just broadening that thinking process. So it's absolutely wonderful. You're doing amazing work, and we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. I've enjoyed this very much. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll be in touch soon, and we can get something set up. That would be amazing. Wow. Yes. Well, Rob, I know that you got another show to do, and I don't want to be. What an amazing night. And I mean, I just absolutely can't even, it's just been mind blowing. And just look in the description below, go find Peter's work. Peter, he's got everything out there. So, petermaxwellslattery.com, ECETIaustralia.org. All the links are in there. Follow him. He's got all of his evidence up on Facebook, on all across there. So look him up and definitely look into it. You can't help but to, just hours upon hours and testimony upon testimony. So it's very compelling. So thank you, everybody. In closing, Rob, is there anything that you wanted to say?
No, he's the real deal. He's like, not just that he's the real deal, but he has an amazing outlook on life. I love the stuff he brought tonight. It was like, I'm really happy to be a part of this, and this was amazing. It really was. I think we did a really good show. I think it came out good. I think the audience would agree with that, and thank you. It was awesome.
Yeah, it only gets better from here, especially with the ranch and all the exciting event stuff that we were going to have going on. So it is amazing, and he does. And like I said, it's a great, Rob. This has been fun, and every Friday we're just going to keep bringing it. So everybody,
what I think is good about this collab is I talk to a lot of the secret space people, and you talk to a lot of people in the mainstream UFO community. So maybe we can bring those communities together.
That'd be great.
And,
we're not so far apart. With everything and it being in your chat and stuff and watching and getting to know your people. It's like, you're right. We got to bridge that across. There's a way of bridging this together. And it just really is about bringing people together and connecting them. I agree.
It's all about disclosure. And I've been a UFO nerd since I was a kid. I used to, I used to listen to Art Bell since when I was 19, 20 years old, and then it kind of goes away from you, and then you kind of get back into it, but so interviewing someone like Peter, the 2 interviews we did today were like right up my alley. They were amazing, that's I just fulfilled 2 this was this was really awesome.
Yeah, it was. It really was. And I can't wait if we got this, in one weekend and one Friday, just wait to, we got some exciting things coming up. So definitely stay tuned. You guys are going to love it. And in closing, I want to thank you on behalf of SNX Radio and Rob on behalf of Typical Skeptic Podcasts. And we look forward to bringing you more people and bridging that gap between the 2 communities. I think we can do it.
Yeah, I agree. And thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So, yes, we'll go ahead and in closing, thank you for taking the journey into the unknown with SNX Radio and Typical Skeptic Podcast. And we will be back to you next Friday. So, look out for the Friday collabs. They're definitely coming. We appreciate each and every one of you.
Unraveling the mystery, secrets in the night. We travel through the cosmos, ready for the flight. Together we'll shine, casting shadows aside. In the heart of the rhythm where our dreams collide.
Join the Subnation Next Quest, the truth is our guide in the vast expanse. It's where we reside, hands up to the sky, let the bass ignite. Feel the grooves around us, everything's alright.
On the Subnation Next Quest, the truth is our guide in the vast expanse. It's where we reside, hands up to the sky, let the bass ignite. Feel the grooves around us, everything's alright. SNX Radio, let the truth ignite. Together we'll shine, bringing shadows to light. In this cosmic dance, we're connecting the dots.
Tune into the frequency, let's explore the spots. Heavy bass drops with tight beats.
Illuminate the shadows, the echo of our call.
On this road we will never fall.
Feel the energy rising, can you sense the spark? As we dive deeper into the cosmic arc.
Stories of the universe, mysteries unfold. In the heart of SNX, where the truth is gold. Every note we play, every line we write, crafting our legacy, shining ever bright.
SNX Radio, let the truth ignite. Together we'll shine, bringing shadows to light. In this cosmic dance, we're connecting the dots.
Tune into the frequency, let's explore the spot. Here in the spotlight, we're taking our turn. With the fire in our hearts, let the passion burn. As the next radio's call, ringing through the air. Together we rise, together we dare.
So join us now, let the rhythm flow. With SNX Radio, we're ready to go. Unraveling the mystery side by side.